The history of Colombia is actually a really interesting one. It all starts with Simón Bolivar.
Early 19th century, the colonies of the Spanish Empire, unhappy and resentful, erupted into revolution. The Venezuelan War of Independence began in 1810, a struggle that was disrupted by a devastating earthquake. Thereafter, Simón Bolivar spearheaded the campaign for liberation. The pro-Spain royalists struck back and reconquered, but Bolivar did not give up, receiving military aid from Haiti and thousands of British and Irish volunteers, tough, hardened veterans of the Napoleonic Wars. Bolivar relaunched the campaign, crossing the Andes Mountains like a reborn Hannibal, and leading his forces to victory in the crucial Battle of Boyacá.
And thus, Gran Colombia's independence is December 17th, 1821, thanks to Simón Bolivar, the Libertador. Well, as also his vice president.
Like Francisco de Paula Santander.
He was the one who was actually doing any government stuff when Simón was off fighting the Spanish and freeing Peru. He eventually did return. He was inspired by the American Revolution and liberty and peace and all that. But he also wanted the presidency for life and wanted to choose his successor. There was a lot of back and forth and firing and almost civil wars over centralization versus federalization, until eventually they decided to come together in 1828. Send word to the governors, Simón Bolivar has been killed.
Poisoned by our enemies. How did he die?
Poisoned by his enemies.
And thus Santander became the new president, and walked that tightrope along with his successors of federalization versus centralization, and thus Gran Colombia was here to stay, modeled off the United States of America. Much like it, they decided just to kick that whole slavery thing down the road in Venezuela. It probably won't lead to anything.
Led to civil war, in which around 100,000 people, 1/10 of the population, died.
The First Civil War is often referred to as the Federal War or the Venezuela War, where conservative, pro-slavery forces in Venezuela tried seceding with former Revolutionary General Paez, but they were crushed by the government, led by this guy with his great mustache and his iron jaw, thus establishing the United States of Colombia. His successor died in 45 days, which led to snap elections.
This strong and determined face belonged to Gabriel García Moreno. Years earlier, he had witnessed firsthand the dangers of liberalism in the 1848 revolutions in Europe, and he would establish a conservative party. Above all, he wanted his divided nation to be unified, which was currently fragmented by race, class, language, and politics. The one thing people had in common was Roman Catholic Christianity, and Moreno would make this one of the two focuses of his regime, the other being himself. Moreno oversaw economic improvements. Roads were paved, railways, hospitals, and schools were built, but the liberals' hatred of him was undimmed as they lambasted him in the press as a dictator, and in 1875 he was assassinated by a Colombian with a machete. This splendidly bearded fellow served as president 3 times, and brought about a number of reforms as secularism was encouraged, church properties were confiscated, and I'm sure it was pure coincidence they ended up in liberal leaders' hands in 1895 with this man, Eloy Alfaro. The United States was compelled to intervene in a disagreement between Britain and Venezuela over disputed land.
Settling that the British can keep Guyana, but the U.S. can build a cool canal through their northern territory, and the U.S. can keep it for a few decades. They agreed, but many were upset about this, leading to a lot of screaming.
And more war, leaving a lot of people dead.
After a lot of blood, sweat, and mosquitoes, they finally built the Panama Canal, cutting America in half. World War I. Colombia decided to sit this one out, even with the Second Paraguay War going on.
Meanwhile, oil was discovered in Venezuela. Lots and lots and lots of oil.
And now the economy skyrocketed. Nothing could possibly go shit.
Not helped by a fungal infection of cocoa plants.
The Conservative Party that's been ruling since the Thousand-Day War or Second Civil War didn't know how to fix this, which led to the country nearly being torn apart by fascists and anarchists. Then Romeo Benticor was elected as the FDR of Colombia, a social democrat who understood how economy works and fixed it.
As the country underwent some much-needed stability, but Ecuador's hazy territorial claims in the Amazon were challenged by Peru, who invaded in 1941.
The Peruvian dictator was allied with the Axis powers, which led to Colombia joining the Allies in World War II, along with Brazil, who both were very instrumental in the Pacific theater. Benticor continued serving as president until his retirement in '64, siding with the United States in the Cold War, leading to a lot of immigration between the two countries. Colombian food has become pretty popular in the United States, as well as Colombian-based media, or movies set in Colombia. Also, the flag changed, and he was nearly assassinated by the dictator of the Dominican Republic. After his retirement, he was replaced by Rojas Pinilla, a popular general during the War with Peru, but he also slid back a lot of the democratic reforms, which made everyone mad, leading to the creation of FARC, in the Third Civil War, known as the Violence, due to how brutal the government cracked down on them, as well as the crazy interfighting.
So they created their own left-wing guerrilla warfare groups like FARC, M19, ELN, inspired by Che Guevara and the Marxist ideologies, whom fought against the government and a few incidents against themselves sometimes, whereas parts of the Colombian army broke off and created their own illegal paramilitary groups that fought against both the regular military and the guerrillas.
Also, the Andes War started up, often known as the Indochina Wars of the Americas, where communist forces couped the government in Paraguay, took over Bolivia, and fought in southern Peru, until eventually settling on this. The US and Colombia were completely unable to prevent this, but it also didn't really matter because Bolivia and southern Peru ended up fighting with each other. Guillermo Rodriguez came next. He was president during the Iran oil crisis, which led to a lot of spending. Until they ran out of money. I wonder why.
This man was elected, a reformer highly concerned with human rights, who died 2 years later in a mysterious plane crash.
The Liberal Party quickly found Pablo Escobar, and he became president next. He oversaw the delayed return of the Panama Canal during the second term of Jimmy Carter, and Escobar was able to fix the economy incredibly well, even completely wiping out the country's debt, spending a ton into rural development, education, people's life expectancies went up.
He negotiated a peace treaty with FARC, for which he received the Nobel Peace Prize.
But then people started questioning, how exactly does he have so much money, and where did all of his political enemies go? And unemployment's kind of steady to low, so where is all this money coming from? Then the Iran-Contra affair happened, and more people started looking into what's going on in Colombia.
Just 'cause they moved a teeny bit of blow.
As all this was happening, drug cartels were growing and expanding their billion-dollar empires in the 80s and 90s, the largest ones being the Cali cartel, led by the Rodriguez Orihuela family, and the Medellin cartel, led by Pablo Escobar, the richest drug cartel of all time.
Pablo eventually admitted to his crimes and was arrested, sent to a personal prison he funded, which was more of a mansion, which he stayed in until his death in 2020, being replaced by businessman Andres Arango, who brought relations closer to the United States, like this famous photo of him with former President Donald Rumsfeld. One non-consecutive term later,
in 2001, the unpopular national adoption of the US dollar actually brought some fiscal stability. The socialist Rafael Correa ushered in numerous liberal policies, and while the standard of living improved, there was recession and numerous protests, notably from Amerindian groups angered at their forest lands being sold to China.
Current president of Colombia is Gustavo Petro, which leads us to today. The United States of Colombia takes up all of northern South America. It is the only country in South America that borders both the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. It's divided into several states, including the capital and largest city, Bogota. Colombia is one of the most biodiverse countries on Earth. They even have the Galapagos Islands. 70% of the population identifies as mestizo, 14% black, 8% Native American, 6% white, and 2% everything else. Mostly Palestinian, Lebanese, and even Romani. Keep in mind, Colombia is also very liberal with the idea of mestizo, and probably 30% is actually more white.
The thing about South America is that the further south you go along the Andes, the more indigenous the population gets until you hit Bolivia, where over 60% of everyone is Amerindian. Then it just kind of stops.
These are Type A-B American-style plug outlets. The US dollar is used, as well as the Colombian Bolivar. Gay marriage is legal. Colombia is a founding member of OPEC. They are the largest producers of bananas and emeralds. The largest religion is soccer, followed by 80% of the population identifying as Catholic.
The largest Druze community outside of the Middle East at about 60,000, and of course a small community of Jews, which is why I'm here.
Colombia is the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world. People really like the Ecuador accent the most.
In addition to Spanish, though, there are 14 indigenous languages that are recognized and established as regional languages, even though less than 10% of the population speaks them. The most prevalent of them being Quechua, spoken in the Andes, and Shuar, spoken in the Amazon. The government is actually trying to preserve the Quechua language by instituting Quechua programs and translations on TV. Fun side note, Greedo from Star Wars actually speaks gibberish Quechua.
Colombia definitely had a troubled past, but it's definitely growing from it. Let me know what you thought down below, as well as hitting the like button and subscribing for more.